Jared's got it, wants to throw on fourth down, does. Middle, got it complete. Laporta, 20. Laporta, 15. Spinning at the 10, fighting at the 5. Still going at the 3, to the 2, to the 1, to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
It is week 10 of the NFL season, which is crazy to think about. It's rolled on. This is the 20 in the Huddle podcast. I am Tim Twentyman, and joined by Eric Woodyard. Does a great job covering everything Detroit Lions for ESPN. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me, man.
How's the son doing? Basketball's getting rolling here.
Busy. He got a whole schedule of his own, so yeah.
And that's tough because mine plays hockey, which is named the captain of the hockey teams. And when you're a dad and you're doing this job, it's always tough, isn't it? And especially for you, because I mean, I know you're traveling a little bit more distance-wise, but you got basketball games, hockey games at night, missing it on the weekend. It's a tough gig when your son or daughter plays a winter sport, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, man. We just went down to Indiana during the bye week, so I didn't get a chance to during my bye week. He got invited to Chris Paul's middle school combine.
Oh, nice.
He went down there and played some of the top kids of his grade, 6th grade. And
how'd he do down there?
He did really, really well.
Yeah.
Man. So yeah, I was.
You got a college basketball player on
I'm
your?
hoping. I don't want
hopes?
to pay for college. That's a win. I don't want to pay for school.
I hear you. Mine's a senior, and he's getting into all those schools now and starting those bills. Me and my wife are saying, "Oh, it's going to cost that this first year." Oh, that. Oh boy. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, let's get back to it. Let's talk Detroit Lions. Before we move to Washington, Eric, let's go back and talk about Minnesota a little bit. Maybe the biggest concern you have after watching that performance, 27-24 loss to Minnesota.
I think it was just they looked extremely rusty. I mean, in my opinion. I mean, you look at how they looked against going into the bye against Tampa Bay, and you look at that team that showed up against Minnesota last week, and it was night and day. I mean, from every aspect, defensively, even you look at offense, just so many different things we could just break down. Even though they put up 24 points, it just wasn't a good performance, especially in the rushing aspect. I mean, that's just not this team. So
65 yards, 3.3 yards. That's not Lions football.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, season low touches. All that. I mean, it was just a very sloppy, a really, really ugly performance, honestly.
One of the big takeaways for me was just the health of the O-line now moving forward. You know, we didn't see Penei Sewell practice on Wednesday. He was working off to the side. I think that's encouraging. I think he's going to be okay, but still no Taylor Decker. They're managing that. I think they're going to manage it all year. You lose Christian Mahogany. Now you got Coyote Owasika stepping in, and some other depth pieces are going to be counted on. How big of a concern is that for you moving forward?
It was a concern already going forward into the season because, I mean, from week to week, we keep hearing Dan Campbell and these guys talk about communication, and particularly on the offensive line, which is crazy. You look at what they had last year with, the veterans and how tight that group has been. That's kind of like been an identity of this team. So it's definitely a concern going forward. How can these guys step in? They're, continuing to sign guys going forward. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out.
Eric, we got to a point last year where the offense was asked to compensate for the defense, right? I mean, because they were just devastated by injuries. Now the offense isn't that point, but it's not getting to a point now where you're asking the defense to step up and be a little bit better to make up for maybe some deficiencies the Lions are starting to have up front or overall. Are you to that point yet or not yet?
Not just yet. I mean, I think that's just kind of the offense has just kind of been the kind of like bailing the team out.
Right.
They know at any time there's so many explosives, so many weapons that they can always just, get a point. It's like in basketball, get a bucket. You know what I mean? So anybody on this team can go off. We just talked to David Shaw, and he was talking about how this team is kind of like the 80s Lakers.
I know you love that analogy.
Yeah, I like that. But I mean, because when you think about that, they are kind of anybody can, it's like a run and gun style. It's a fast break with Magic Johnson comparable to Jared Goff running the show, and where anybody can score, anybody can get off. So yeah, I mean that's kind of been the identity of this team being bailed out for so long, to where now it's kind of weird to see when that's not happening.
All right, before we get to Washington, trade deadline this week, Lions stayed put. Dan talked about it on Wednesday, liked the depth pieces that they have, like their guys that they know about. He talked about knowing what guys' strengths are, but also knowing what their warts are too, and feeling good about the depth on this roster and thinking that was better than anything they would give up on the open market. Turned out there wasn't a lot of offensive linemen on the open market. Some big deals, but the Lions weren't involved. Just your overall thought of the trade deadline.
I wasn't really surprised by it. I mean, just based off what they've been doing the last few, I didn't see them going out and trying to make a splash pick or doing something crazy. It's just really not how this team has been made up. I think, they might bring in some other guys along the way if it makes sense, but I wasn't really surprised that they, kind of stood with what they had.
All right, let's move forward. Sunday's matchup, national audience against the Commanders in Washington. obviously that's a team reeling a little bit. When you lose your quarterback, dislocated left elbow, you're arguably one of your best defensive players in Marshawn Lattimore. You lost a valuable special teams piece in McCaffrey. They're going through it right now. Just the impact of losing Daniels specifically. Anytime you lose your starting quarterback, that's huge. But he was such a big part, Eric, of what they did, running-wise, everything. Yeah. That's a big loss, isn't it?
I mean, that's just, it's hard to even, communicate that. I mean, that's your franchise guy. That's everything. That's who you put everything in. And we saw what he did to Detroit last year in the playoffs.
Good point.
Kind of destroyed them a little bit, picked them apart. So, I mean, you probably see them rely on the run game a lot more. You bring it in Marcus and, want to see how he responds. I think he's, 1-2 as a starter this year. So, but they are actually averaging more points without Jaden Daniels, which is crazy. Even though obviously he's not a better player. But, I mean, this team is still an NFL team. You still can't come in and just – feel like they're just going to give you a win. So, I mean, definitely it's a big thing to lose that guy, that piece. But I see them probably trying to run the ball a little more. And, the Lions definitely got to come ready to play because this team's not going to just lay down. And they have nothing to lose. Sometimes them teams in that situation can be dangerous as well. So
ask the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Think about that. Anybody can win on any given Sunday,
so, I mean,
right? If you don't show up.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Lions are a little vulnerable right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they got to come in and play.
What do you want to see from this Detroit Lions football team come Sunday?
I want to see the run game get back. I want to see the offensive line. I want to see if they can, kind of cover the holes and get, open those holes up for those guys. Jameer Gibbs, that's unacceptable for him to, have that season low. I think 12 touches, 28 scrimmage yards, something like that. We saw uncharacteristic of David Montgomery fumbling the ball. So I want to see them get that run game because I think that's the meat and potatoes of this team. If the run game is not going, you're more than likely not going to see everything open up for the explosive playmakers with J-Mo and Saint and those guys. So I think you got to get that. You got to get that run game together.
It might correlates to that, too, a little bit. You got to get that run game going so you put yourself in good down and distance situations in second down and third down. And I want to see them just figure this thing out on third down, Eric. I mean, 36.3%, 25th in the league. I mean, they were fourth at almost 50% last year. They just haven't been able to figure that out. Crazy stat, 3rd and 10 plus, they're 0 for 21 on the year. Yeah. I mean, they have to figure that out because more conversions on third down means more touches for Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery. To your point about the run game, more opportunities to get the ball into J-Mo and Tesla and St. Brown's hands and just be a more effective offense. For me, that's what I want to see Sunday is them being better on third down. Key matchup for you.
Man, I want to see – I was looking up another stat that I pulled up as well as far as their rushing yards. The Commanders, they averaging 5.1 rushing yards per game this season. And the Lions, that's third in the NFL. I mean, that's third in the NFL behind the Ravens and the Jets. The Lions defense has the second worst run stop win rate at 25.9%. So I think that's something that I'll be looking at is seeing how they stop that. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but you really gotta key in on those aspects, and the defense definitely has to do a better job. So that's something I'll be looking at as well.
Well, especially when what you talked about earlier, that's what they're going to want to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're probably not going to have the wide receiver, their number one wide receiver either. They lose McCaffrey, a guy who's contributed as a wide receiver. I got John Keim on, who's going to be on a little bit later, and he was just talking about kind of where they are injury-wise, and he basically made the point where they got no receivers. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great point by you is they want to come in and run the ball. Right. Keep the ball away from Detroit's offense. That's how they can maintain this game. I think it's a great one by you. They've got to be better in that regard, especially up front and in the middle. I think we haven't seen Detroit be as dominant against the run in the middle that I expected. I don't know about you.
Right, definitely. I mean, we know what Hutch and those guys are going to bring on the edge, but definitely up the middle, that's a soft spot.
Yeah, and for me, the flip side, you're going to probably get Coyote Owasika in there. Graham Glasgow and Tate Ratledge, I think they'll both tell you they probably didn't play their best football last week. Well, now you've got Javon Kinlaw and Darren Payne in Washington. That's a pretty good duo in the middle of their defensive line. They've got injuries on the outside. They're a little deficient there. But that's two strong guys up the middle in an area where you've got a little bit of concern and probably you're going to have a new starter this week. So I think that's going to be a matchup I watch closely. Can Detroit establish that run? Can they avoid that pressure up the middle with two defensive tackles that are pretty good?
No, definitely, yeah.
All right, who needs the biggest bounce back?
Biggest bounce back, man. I'm a stick with my guy Gibbs, man. I gotta. It's like we've saw what he's been able to do.
Yeah,
I want to see it done consistently. If you want to be one of the best running backs in the league, you got to do that consistently. You know what I mean? So I think I want to see a bounce back game from him, especially what we saw against Tampa Bay. You know, we was looking at, you know, one of the top guys, which I still feel like he is. So I think, you know, I probably got a little higher expectations for him to bounce back. So definitely Jahmyr Gibbs.
We are on the same page. Jahmyr Gibbs right here. Last year in this matchup with Washington, 175 total yards, 2 touchdowns. He really kept them in that football game. He was dominant. The blocking aspect, I was a little disappointed with too, Eric. Minnesota kind of identified something, brought a lot of that double A gap, that middle thing, that middle pressure, and Jahmyr's been really good in that regard. I wouldn't say that's a strength of his. Obviously, he's getting the ball in his hands in space and the speed aspect, but he's got to be better in that regard too because that's on tape now. And so if you're going to play him more than you're playing David Montgomery, which has been the kind of system all year, teams are going to see that, and now are they going to bring that pressure up the middle? Are they going to force Jahmyr to be, you know, a blocking back? I want to see him better in that regard, and they got to get him the football, like you said earlier.
Definitely. But I think last week, I mean, as much as we talking about it and breaking it down, I still think it was a little bit of rust aspect in that. You coming off the bye. It's no excuse. But I think you'll see a much better team this week.
I think so, too. All right, let's finish up with this. Where should the Lions have the most distinct advantage come Sunday, in your opinion?
I think anytime this offense steps on the field, most of the time versus any defense, so I think it's just really pick your poison. I mean, it's still – you know, once again, I go back to David Shaw, hearing him talk, this still is the Lions. This still is a team that, you know, can just explode at any point. So I think that's any aspect that they slip up offensively, this team is just so loaded, and I think they can take advantage. So I think they got a distinct aspect just in being a better offense. And we know what y'all got going on. Y'all got a lot of injuries. Whoever y'all leave open, it's like we just got to take advantage and execute. And I think that's where they're going to have a distinct advantage, just offense. Anytime they step on the field, I feel like.
Are you looking at my notes here?
No, I didn't see. I swear.
Because I got the same. I got the same thing. You know, they don't pressure the quarterback a lot from the edge. They're down a bunch of defensive ends. They're 28th in total defense, 29th against the pass. They haven't really been able to stop anyone. You saw what Seattle did to them last week. Pretty much anything they wanted to in the run and pass game. I think this is a big bounce back for Detroit's offense. I'm with you. I think they realized how rusty they were. No excuse how that performance coming off a bye. They're going to get a couple guys back, and I just think they're going to get rolling. What's the stat? 12-0 after loss. I mean, they've always been able under Dan Campbell since 2022 to bounce back after a loss. It's a Washington team reeling a little bit. I know you're on the road. You hope they don't look ahead to Philly the next week because that's a big matchup. But you can't do that. You got to come back, get to 6-3, and set that one up. So I'm with you. I think offensively, there's going to be a big bounce back for Detroit this week.
Definitely, I expect it as well.
All right. Well, I think we're both on the same page. We like Detroit's chances going in, but again, you've got to show up and you got to play.
Because we thought the same thing with Minnesota last week. So, I mean, you can't just be too – this the NFL, any given Sunday, as they say. So
any given Sunday. We'll both be there in Washington on Sunday. You can catch all of Eric's stuff on ESPN. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Twentyman the Huddle podcast. Very happy to welcome in DJ Reader, defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions. How you doing?
Doing good. How about you?
And I say defensive tackle because the World Series was just over, but you could have been MLB player, pitcher, DJ Reader for whatever team, right?
Yeah, I think I had a chance.
So what were you so if people out there don't know, batted 500 high school career, went to Clemson, played baseball for a year at Clemson, was pitcher, hitter, but you were throwing mid-90s back when you were really humming and had a couple breaking balls. You were a good baseball. You think you had a shot, don't you?
I think so. I think high school baseball, it is what it is, but on the travel circuit, I was pretty competitive. And we always played teams that I played against a bunch of guys who, play in the league. Probably like Corey Seager's probably the most known guy. Played against him every summer from the time I was like 9 until whenever. And you get done playing. But I think my senior year I sat like low 90s. Probably maxed out like 95, but I was really consistent on the mound. I wasn't like out there playing around. I was pretty consistent. I enjoyed it a lot. I spent a lot of time at the batting center when I was a kid.
How big were you as a pitcher? I mean, you had to have been an intimidating figure. I mean, you're not a small guy.
I'm 6'3", 330-ish now. I think I was probably like 6'2", 305, 310. Yeah. Yeah, you didn't know much about nutrition and stuff back then. I've always been kind of a bigger kid. I think that was a lot of what went into it with the whole draft thing. It's like, are you going to be able to get to 275,
Yeah.
280. You know what I'm saying? I think that was a huge thing, and it wasn't like a legacy kid like Prince Fielder who was elite and able to just be that big, but he's also had a dad who played in the major leagues, so
Right.
it wasn't really like as much of a conflict. So I think that was really one of those things.
What do you think? What do you like about baseball? What is it about baseball, growing up playing baseball, that you think helped you as a football player?
I tell people all the time, like, it's a different level of competition, especially like when you pitch. When you're a good hitter and you pitch, like, it's a different level of thought process in your head. Like, you feel like you're in it every single play, and you can make the difference. Like, you can make the biggest difference. Like, I mean, we saw it in the World Series. Guy got bases loaded, 1 out, and he didn't give up a run. Like, that it gives you a different type of confidence. And I think, honestly, from playing D-line, it just gives me a lot of anticipation. Like, something has to happen every single play in baseball, whether somebody hits the ball or not. But you got to be thinking, like, if it's hit here, what are my outs? What are my force outs? Where do I got to go? If we're turning to, where's it at? If it's hit infield, outfield, and as a hitter, like, guy on third, if the infield's back, I can hit it on the ground. If the infield's forward, I got to get it in the air. I can't really think about, do I want to hit behind the runner at first base? All those things, like, go into it, and I think it helped me out a lot just in football.
I know me and you have chatted because both our sons play baseball. Your son's, what, 6 now?
About to be 6 this weekend.
About to be 6 this weekend. Nice.
Yep.
And baseball, he's into it.
Yeah,
You
he
coached a little bit.
Yeah.
How fun was that? Because I remember it's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you have to have the right temperament to coach 5-year-olds playing baseball.
Yeah, and then shout out to all his coaches who were there all the time. I helped out a little bit, but like the biggest thing is the kids love it. It's parents.
Yeah.
Parents are tough.
Oh.
They are tough. And if you saw me playing baseball at that age, like, just growing up, my mom cheers for everybody. Literally every single person. She's that mom. Like, people on the other team, my team, anyone. And my dad is always, like, typical dad. He's sitting out in the outfield somewhere watching.
Right. That was me out in center field when I wasn't coaching.
Yeah, just so I don't make every pitch and look at him and see what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? Looking for his reaction. But it was fun, and the funny story is, like, he begged me to play pitcher and his coaches to play pitcher all year. And I've never really seen my son, like, field the ball and, like, just throw it to first base. Like, we're playing T-ball, so, like, most kids not. So it was not a big deal to me. He could hit. And that's all I really cared about. I was like, oh, he can hit the ball at the tee. It's cool.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, let me do it. I'm like, let me do it. I can do it. And, like, finally, the last game of the season, like, we let him do it. And I'm looking at his mom. I'm like, dude, it's not going to go well. He somehow, and amazes me and everybody else that he gets 3 straight outs, fields him, throwing the first, fields him, throw to first, fields him, throw to first, and then looks at me and goes, I told you I could pitch. And I'm like, whatever, dude. Like,
You get that moment where, like, the ball goes to the outfield and the kid catches it and the parents and everybody freaks out, like, oh my God, he caught it.
I was like, he just make 3 outs by himself and, like, then come over to me like, dude, I
told you, Dad,
you
no,
the whole
it ain't no
time.
thing.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know why y'all didn't believe me. I'm like, it's crazy. But yeah, so young Rock, he enjoys it. He likes it.
Yeah.
He's more into boxing though. He
Okay.
likes contact.
All
Very
right.
big on
Football
contact.
player eventually?
I think so. We
Slowing your way to that one?
Yeah, because he doesn't like flag football. He wants to hit somebody.
No, of course. He's
so
definitely a reader.
Yeah, so we're slow playing in the contact football. It's I think it's important to do, but I want to be there a little bit more to be able to coach him through contact football.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
When they get to that age and they start to do that stuff,
For
get
sure,
their personality
for
and do
sure.
sports a little bit. All right, let's get to football a little bit. You guys have been so good over the last few years. I know you've only been here, this is your second season, but 12-0 after a loss since 2022.
Yeah.
What is it about this team, this coaching staff, the way Dan approaches it, that you guys have been able to kind of turn the page and get back to playing winning football? You're obviously looking to do that again this week.
I think just the mentality after a loss. Nobody wants it to happen, obviously. But I think the mentality is, like, you got to turn the page. I've always looked at losses like how I looked at throwing balls when I was a pitcher, like getting a hit off me when I was a pitcher. You got to turn the page. You can't get it back. Like, as much as you want to grab that pitch back or grab that loss back and what could I have done, what you harping on it, and you got 24 hours to harp on it, and then after that, you really got to turn the page because the next opponent's not going to feel sorry that you took an L. And I think a lot of guys in this locker room do a good job of just focusing up, making sure, like, hey, we're on our P's and Q's. We're going to practice harder this week. And, it's not an excuse because you should always practice hard, but think there's a little bit more sense of urgency
Sure.
when you take a loss, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
What do you like about Calvin Shepard? He's certainly dynamic. When we talk to him, you look at the defensive numbers, everything's a little bit better this year with him. What do you like about him running that defense?
He's a little bit closer to a lot of the players' age, especially like an older guy like me. So he's fresh out of it, so he gets like what the new NFL is today.
Yeah.
I think that is the biggest thing. The NFL is all about change, and it's change that's consistently happening. But he's also super smart. Like Shep, he played the mic growing up and played in college, played in the league. But so he understands like the job that's put on linebackers' plate. And then talking to the secondary, talking to the guys, he doesn't make you have to exactly speak his language. He wants us to have our own universal language. So if you understand it a certain way, you can go talk to him about it. I understand it this way, and it makes it a lot easier for you as a player. Like, yo, this is what I'm saying. He gets what you're saying. He doesn't get stuck up on what the dialect is. He understands what you're trying to talk about. I think that's big for a player having that in a coach, just because it's always you come from different systems, different words are going to be said. But if you know what you're doing, and some people aren't as talkative as other people. So as long as you know what you're doing, maybe you pick up hand signal better. Maybe you communicate this way. And as long as your brother beside you can understand that communication, I think he's fine with it. And I think you can get hung up on that a lot as a coach. Like, I want it done this way, this way.
Yeah.
He doesn't really get hung up on that.
Just a few more for you. I know you got your defensive meetings coming up here. You're healthy.
Yeah.
That's been a huge revelation for you this year. Had to deal with the quad injury last year, missed training camp, all that stuff. You're probably just getting going at this time of year. How nice has it been to be healthy, have been able to ramp up, and how do you think you've played this year? Because from the outside looking in, you've had a huge impact in the center of that defense.
Yeah, I think it's been a good year. It's got to keep going. Obviously, you would like to get to the quarterback a little bit more if you're me in my position. But I think it's been good. I think I've played some good ball. It's year 10. I'm a little bit older. But I feel good out there. And it's been fun just watching the guys run around, running things a little bit different than what I've always ran like in my career. So I had to to begin to get over that mental aspect of there's not as many plays out there for you necessarily.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different scheme.
Sure.
But you're helping the scheme as a whole. And, so for me, it's just getting out of that selfish mindset of you're going to make this many plays, but you might be losing. Like, we're winning.
Right.
To me, that's what it matters. That's when it really matters.
You have to take consolation in the fact that when Jack gets a tackle, you know it's because you opened that double team in that hole for Jack to make that tackle. When the edge gets there, it was because the double team. And you don't felt the stack box, just like Tyleek doesn't either. But like you said, that's part of this defense, and it all fits one and one. So as a veteran player, I'm sure you appreciate that. I had Taylor Decker. You also appreciate the 10th year, don't you?
Yeah.
That retirement kicks in at 10. But how much do you love the fact that you've been able to stick around for 10 years, or you appreciate the fact that you're still doing it in year 10?
It's amazing. I think it's a cliche saying, but I've been able to really change my life and my family's life. Really make that last name and legacy that my dad left around, proud. And it means a lot to me. And still to be playing good ball. I'm not just out there holding on in year 10. But I think for me, it's just been super important that you put your best foot forward every year. And for somebody who never saw this as a dream, who saw making it to the NFL, I was just gonna go to grad school and go be a teacher like my dad and brother were. That was it. I really enjoyed football as a means to make it to college. I knew I wasn't never going to be able to go to the college I wanted to unless I got a scholarship. It was made very clear to me at an early age. My pops sat down and told me that, and it was just something that we worked towards, and then the offer started riding in sophomore year. You never think hey, it can really go this far. I think the only glimpse of it I ever had of it was when it really started. I got a combine invite the day after the national championship, and
you had never thought about the NFL before that, really?
No,
really,
never. No,
because you were a pretty dominant college player.
I thought I was pretty good, but it was never I was on these watch lists or this, that, and the third. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the senior year, I was out for 6 games. with the suspension. So it was like, all right, I'm just gonna go to grad school and keep it pushing. Like, get my master's degree, make sure I've already graduated, so I'm straight. Like, I'm not. Football really owes me nothing. Like, I got this education, I'm debt free. Like, I'm good. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm good. And then I get this combine invite, and I'm like, all right, well, okay. Like, I signed an agent, like everybody does. But and he's telling me this, that, and the third, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Whatever. And then I get the combine invite, and then a couple days later, I get an invite to like the Reese Senior Bowl. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe go out there, work my tail off. Maybe I got a good chance to like going somewhere, UDF, you know what I'm saying, UDFA, and I'm like, all right, let's just see how it works. And then it just kept going. Finally, get that call from Houston.
Yeah.
It's been
parlay that
since.
to Cincinnati and parlay that to Detroit, and
so
here you are in 10
since,
years later. That's crazy, man. Well, you're still playing good football at 10 years. Hopefully you guys get back on the winning track this week. Appreciate you taking the time, and I love the story behind you. Good luck on Sunday. Welcome back to the Twin in the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. I'm very happy to welcome in John Keim. Does a great job covering everything Washington Commanders for ESPN. You can also catch him on the John Keim Report. Great podcast there. John, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Quite a different game than we met when we met the last time.
Yeah, I had you on last year. We were getting ready for the division playoffs and obviously the excitement that surrounds that. Now you've got two teams coming off week 9 losses, tough losses for both teams, probably a little bit tougher for the Washington Commanders considering what they lost. Let's talk about it right off the top, John. You lose Jaden Daniels to the dislocated left elbow. No time frame for his return yet. Obviously won't play Sunday. What's the impact in the immediate Sunday with not having a guy as dynamic as Jaden in the lineup?
I mean, there's an impact because of what you just said, but the offense hasn't looked good, Tim, for a while. And part of it goes back to they don't have any receivers to throw to. So, like, I'm watching Detroit against Minnesota last week, and sometimes JJ's thrown up to Addison, Justin Jefferson. They're making plays in tight coverage. They don't have guys who can do that for this team. So even if Jaden Daniels was able to play this week, it's still a very tough road because they just don't have people who can scare defenses. Like Deebo Samuel can still help a team, and he still helps them, but he needs guys on the outside who can threaten deep, and they don't have it. And so without that, I don't care right now for them if Jaden Daniels or Marcus Mariota is a quarterback, it's tough, and their defense is just playing really bad. So like that, it adds up to a team just in a very bad spiral.
So Marcus Mariota steps in, obviously a veteran guy, has been around this league for a long time. Does the offense change at all, John, with Marcus in, or is it the same version?
It's the same version, but where there are a couple, the subtle differences, Tim, is that he's a little bit more comfortable with playing at a faster pace. In other words, like with the up-tempo, no huddle stuff. The hard part there is that you have a defense that just can't get out the field. So how often do you want to do that? But he's more comfortable than Daniels is in that role. They both go a lot of no huddle. It's just that Mariota is more comfortable going faster in that. And I think they're also going to use more designed runs for Marcus than they would for Jaden. Jaden gets a lot of stuff off of scrambles, whereas Mariota, they'll incorporate more of the zone read keepers or just quarterback keepers in general, more so than they would do for Jaden. So, and he's comfortable when like they run their RPOs, but teams have been taking a lot of that away with their coverage alignment. So, but that is an area where he does well, but they both do that pretty well. So, but really the big difference is tempo and then quarterback keepers.
You talked about the wide receivers off the top. Maybe one of the injuries that maybe fell through the cracks a little bit last weekend was that to Luke McCaffrey. He had been playing pretty well, had a couple touchdowns in recent games. How big of a loss was that for them? Because you talked about it, they were already short receivers, that now they lose another one. Is that a bigger loss than people may think?
I think it's a bigger loss overall, not necessarily just to the receiver room, because he wasn't highly productive there. Like he would have a couple touchdowns, but he wouldn't have a lot of catch. There wasn't a lot of consistent productivity. But as a receiver, he was a good blocker, and he could, he was a guy who was in their top 5 at the start of the season. Unlike some of these other guys they have out there now, they're on the practice squad on the street. So you lose that, but it's really overall what you lose because he's a good kick returner and he was good on special teams in general. So I think you lose a productive player for you, somebody that they really liked, and he gave them a spark at times in the return game more so than he did at receiver. So it's really a bigger loss overall than it is just to receiver.
Also lost Marshawn Lattimore, arguably one of their top cornerbacks, to an ACL injury. He's done for the year. John, when I look at the defensive stats, preparing for this game, I was shocked they don't rank higher than 20th in really any defensive category. Now you lose one of your best guys in the secondary. What's been the biggest issue? And it's really been a year-long issue with this Commanders defense. We just haven't seen them perform at the level that we were used to, at least last year.
Yeah, and last year they were okay. One thing they didn't do last year was create takeaways, and they're not doing a lot of that this year either. So you have a defense that's not getting off the field, and they can't create takeaways. It's kind of a bad combo.
It's not a great recipe, John.
And then you're okay, but they can't do any of that. So, like the run game, I'll start with the run game because early in the year they were playing the run better. They went out and signed Javon Kinlaw. They got bigger up front. And so they felt like they were better equipped to handle the run. They are really undisciplined with their run gap fits. And so that adds up to too many 5-6 yard first down carries in the run game, which then sets up everything else for another team. So they're undisciplined with the run fits. Then in coverage, like they try to simplify and quote unquote pare down, which of course it means simplify the coverage schemes and some of what they're doing and some of the not change on every look, like stick in this defense. There's still confusion at times about what they're in. Like there was a play the other night where Mikey Samerstow, whom people there know from his Michigan days, gets beat inside, but I think he's expecting safety help over the top, and it leads to a discussion on the sidelines about like what happened there. Like that stuff happens too often, and like early on it was miscommunication, but they give sometimes it's Chicago killed them in the screen game. And so that's a lot of linebackers and D-line stuff. So, they've been hurt all over with that, but there's just constant coverage issues that leads to big plays. And to be honest, like if Detroit gets in second and long, don't worry because they give up a lot on second and long all season. It's just been abysmal. So it's a lot of issues and they've gotten worse. It's just hard to imagine, but they've gotten worse.
And this is the Lions offense that's obviously looking for a bounce back. Didn't play up to their standards last week, and they're pretty high standards around here with what they've done offensively the last few years. And so certainly the Commanders have a challenge ahead of them Sunday with a Lions offense that knows they can play better and really are dead set on doing that Sunday in Washington. John, one thing I did notice is the run game, and I'm curious, how much did Jaden Daniels contribute to that number 4 rushing offense? They're averaging more than 130 yards on the ground. The rookie running back, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I believe I have that right. Third in yards among rookies, 4th in touchdowns. Been pretty good there, but how does losing Daniels affect them in what's been really a pretty good rushing offense all year long?
So, Tim, I think it's a lot losing Jaden, but also the receiver. So Terry McLaurin will not play Sunday. So this will be his 6th game he's missed this year. He missed 3 in his first 6 years combined.
Wow.
And so that's a loss. Noah Brown, who was one of their top 3 receivers last year, gets hurt a lot, but he's a threat on the outside. They haven't had those guys. So what teams are doing now are playing a lot more single high coverage and man and loading up the box more. Maybe sometimes it's like it wouldn't be considered 8 in the box according to the metrics, but it's a guy rotating up after the snap. So you're getting a lot more traffic in there that I think is stopping it. And then the score of the game is really impacting the run game. Like last week, they ran the ball okay against a good Seattle defense, but too many to be honest, some of that success came when it's 31-7, right?
Yeah.
They did early on, they were getting it. It's just they can't. So I'm going back to the receiver. So because of all the coverages, it's impacted the run game there, right? And they're not getting the explosive run. So Krosky-Merritt might get 4 yards here, 3 yards here, 4 yards here, but they're not getting the 10, 15, 20-yard gains that they were early in the year when teams weren't loading up as they are now because of the loss receivers. They just don't have guys who can win quick against man coverage, and that's the problem. So it adds up that Krosky-Merritt's been fine. but it's more that they're not getting the explosive runs because and they're not able to stick with it because they're like the last 3 games. Then the second half, they've been down double digits early in the third quarter.
What do you think is the biggest key? Washington's going to come in, they're reeling a little bit, and to surprise all those fans in Washington, make this a game and compete in the second half in the fourth quarter. What has to happen? What's the biggest key for Washington to be in that game and potentially win it Sunday afternoon?
Is it possible Detroit thinks this is a home game and they're going to stay there? Like kidding aside, I think you have to create some short field for the offense some way. And like in the playoff game, like Detroit was in control and then they caused a couple turnovers and they stopped giving the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs in the run. I don't understand that. But like that aside, I think they created some turnovers that helped them in that game. Get some short fields, get something going on defense, whether in the return game, that you've got to provide some sort of juice to help the offense. And then it's like, then you have to be on. And I don't like, honestly, it's really hard to see them winning this game. But in the NFL, that's oftentimes like, who thought Carolina would go to Green Bay and win that game?
Right.
The hard part for me is I just don't like how they're playing on defense at all. That has been true all season. So I don't know why it's going to change other than can you create some turnovers and get some momentum that way? And like the other thing is they need to get a lead early. So like last week, they took the ball first, trying to do that, like, because they just haven't had a lead. They're always playing from behind. So can you get a lead? Not that Detroit can't play from behind, but can these guys, maybe they just feel better if you're playing from ahead, right? They're not equipped to come from behind, so they have to get a lead. So get some momentum early like that. Like that's the way you have to do it. It's because it's going to be tough otherwise. They're just missing so many key pieces, and even with those pieces, they weren't playing well enough in some areas to really, to think that they could go in and win, but without some of this other help.
Aiden Hutchinson looking for a 4th straight on the road with a sack and a forced fumble. I'm curious, how has the tackle play been over there, specifically maybe on the right side, the rookie Connerly? How's he played? And obviously got a veteran on the left side there. I think just from the statistics, he's looked pretty well. That's an interesting matchup for me. What's the tackle play been like?
Sure. So for sure, like Laramie Tunsil has played pretty well for them, and they got him in an offseason trade. I think he's done a really good job. Josh Connerly, the rookie who played at Oregon, was really good there and was their first round pick this year, has definitely had some growing pains. And early in the year, like he had a murderer's row early on. It was like Abdul Carter's, Micah Parsons, Burns, all those guys. And then Max Crosby, like in the first 4 weeks, like those are the guys that he was facing. He hasn't, like last week, I thought against Seattle, did a pretty nice job. But guys like Hutchinson are going to give him problems. So they're going to have to chip and help him. Because you watch, like, you watch Hutchinson, like he is so good at turning the corner, such great balance that I think it's going to be awfully tough for Connerly unless you give him some help or you maybe get some screens to offset that pressure, et cetera. But I think it's going to be trouble. Connerly has slowly gotten better in some areas, but an experienced, talented pass rusher is going to give him problems.
All right, last one from me, John. I'm curious, what's the key matchup? What's the matchup you're looking forward to watching? And I know we've talked, and it's obviously a tough situation there in Washington with some of the injuries and just the way they've played. Obviously, so much expectation for this season. When you don't live up to that, obviously it's tough. But is there a matchup, a particular matchup, a position group? Is there something that you're looking at to maybe see some hope in Washington for the last 9 weeks of the season?
Well, I'll go back to the guy I just talked about, Josh Connerly, and I think also like Trey Amos, the corner, 1st round pick. How does he fare? I think, against Jameson, whomever, St. Brown, whomever, right? Because he's now their top corner. So how does that group fare? Like, can you, Mikey Sarenstill, if he goes outside now, which he did last year with Lattimore out, how does he fare? Is that something you can say, okay, maybe he should be outside or, whatever. But I'm going to go back to Connerly because he's a 1st round pick and he faced I've mentioned those talented pass rushes he faced early. Does he do a better job? If so, why? Because they need to build that front, whoever's playing quarterback, and obviously next year it'll be Jaden, but they need to get that front right and make sure that you've got your guy. Has he progressed? Will Hutchinson abuse him? or will he do a pretty good job against him? So like I'm looking now, like this team, technically they're still alive, but when you realistically look at it, it's now like what's it gonna look like for the future? And that's a guy that I would definitely be looking at, because if he has a good game, that bodes well for them. If he doesn't, then it's like how long is it going to take for him to get there, and what does it look like when he does?
All right, John, I lied. I got one more quick one I want to throw in. Detroit's obviously reeling up front, offensive line-wise. Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, Mahogany's going to be out. They're beat up front, and they might have to work some guys in there. How's that defensive front in Washington looked? How much have they been able to affect the passer? I think that one will be a kind of a key matchup to this kind of Detroit Lions offensive line that might be reeling heading into Sunday afternoon.
Right. And I think that's where I go back to what I was talking about earlier about, can you get momentum? It's going to have to start with those guys, specifically the tackles. Deron Payne and Javon Kinlaw both have pretty good years. So and Kinlaw, big dude. So they can affect them. The hard part, Tim, is the edge, because they've lost, like Dorrance Armstrong, top sacker, he's out. Dietrich Wise Jr., solid edge for them, setting the edge. He was lost in week 2. So they're really down. Their top, or 3 of their top 4 ends are done, right? So Jacob Martin is a journeyman guy, has done a nice job, but they don't have a lot there. So I do think, though, that when they're right, they can get some pressure. And I think the other thing that helps them is, Jared Goff is not going to sit there and scramble. He can maneuver, but he's not going to scramble and beat you. So I think that helps them. So I think the matchup to watch will be inside with Kinlaw and Payne, and they are doing some more creative things the way they align that group to compensate for the lack of an edge guy like Frankie Louvu, a linebacker, who last week they've been playing him a lot as an edge, like kind of almost like a 3-4 outside linebacker, but they're considering it a 5-man front. So they're using him there too. Like he's a guy that might be able to get something for them as well. So that's where, if I'm Detroit, I'm going to be concerned with that group, because that's where you can do possibly some damage, and at least maybe create some situation for yourself that generates momentum.
Well, John, the Lions will be in Washington on Sunday, and look, like you mentioned, it's any given Sunday in the NFL, right? Washington's reeling; they haven't played great. They're dealing with some injuries, but as Carolina showed last week, anybody can win in this league anytime. If you don't go play good football, you can lose in this league. So that's a Washington team with a lot of pride. They've had a lot of winning, especially last year, and so I still expect them to give it all. Dan Quinn is still a really good head coach and a good leader over there. So we'll see how it goes, but Detroit certainly knows that they have to go on the road and play well. It's not a gimme game. So I appreciate you taking the time, breaking everything down Washington-wise. We will see you in Washington Sunday afternoon in what we hope is a good game.
Appreciate it, Tim. It would be nice to see a good game, because I've seen 3 clunkers in a row. So it'd be nice to see something that's a little bit more competitive.
Well, I'll wish that for you. We'll see you Sunday, John. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Tim.